At 78, I thought I had all the time in the world, but there's one conversation I wish I'd had much, much sooner. It's a regret that lingers, a quiet burden I inadvertently placed on my family because I kept silent. I know many of you might be thinking about this option, whether for yourself or a loved one. Maybe you feel like it's too soon, or perhaps you just don't know how to start such a difficult discussion. But before you take that step, before you put it off one more day, I want to share 6 hard truths I wish someone had told me about not talking about end-of-life wishes with my family sooner. Because the truth is, the absence of these conversations changes everything, and once the moment passes, getting that peace back isn't as simple as you think. Stay with me until the end, because some of these lessons might surprise you, and if you know someone considering these talks, this video might be exactly what they need to hear before making a life-changing decision. We always think we have more time, don't we? I certainly did. I remember years ago, my children, Daniel and Sarah, would gently try to bring it up. We'd be in my bright kitchen, the smell of fresh coffee in the air, the sun streaming through the window as we laughed about something silly. Mom, Sarah would start, "Have you ever thought about getting your wishes down on paper? Just in case." I'd wave a dismissive hand, a smile on my face. "Oh, darling, not today. I'm perfectly fine. We'll get to all that later, when I'm, well, older." Daniel would nod, a slight worry in his eyes, but he wouldn't push. I truly believed I had an endless tomorrow. Life felt so stable, so predictable. There was no rush. We had plenty of time for those heavy conversations, but life has a way of reminding you that later can arrive in an instant. The illusion of endless time shattered one ordinary Tuesday. There was no warning, no slow decline. One moment I was gardening, enjoying the warmth on my face, and the next, a sudden, searing pain. I remember flashes, the ambulance sirens, the blur of faces, the crushing realization that I couldn't speak, couldn't tell anyone what I needed, what I wanted. My voice was trapped. My children, Daniel and Sarah, were plunged into shock and fear. They arrived at the hospital, not knowing what had happened, let alone what my wishes might be. I could feel their panic, even through the haze. The ticking clock in the waiting room, though silent to me, must have roared in their ears, demanding answers I hadn't given them. That's when I truly understood the burden I'd placed on them. I was dimly aware of the sterile doctor's office, the hushed, urgent voices. Dr. Aris, my kind physician, looked tired, explaining complex medical terms to Daniel and Sarah. Without an advance directive, I heard him say, "We're left guessing. What would your mother truly want in this situation?" My children, usually so capable, looked lost. Sarah's voice cracked as she tried to recall a casual comment I might have made years ago. Daniel ran his hands through his hair, guilt etched on his face. "We should have talked about this, Mom." I felt him think. I lay there, helpless, a silent witness to their frantic efforts, their agonizing decisions made in the dark. It wasn't just my body in crisis. It was their peace of mind, shattered by my procrastination. So I have to ask you, looking directly at you now, are you truly prepared for later to be now? Have you shattered your own illusion of endless time? Do your loved ones know your deepest wishes for your care, for your life's final chapters? Or are you, like I was, putting it off, believing there's always more time? My mistake cost my family immeasurable stress and guilt. You don't have to make the same one. Take a moment right now to reflect. What would happen if later arrived tomorrow? My children, who loved me so much, were left to guess my deepest desires. I remember the hospital waiting room. It was stark, cold, a stark contrast to the warmth of my home. Even through the fog of my illness, I could hear snippets of their voices, strained and desperate. Daniel, usually so calm, sounded agitated. "But what would she really want, Sarah? We can't just guess." And Sarah, my practical daughter, her voice cracking. "I don't know, Daniel." She always said, "Don't make a fuss. But what does that even mean when it comes to life support?" They paced, their faces etched with worry, their eyes red from lack of sleep and too many tears. I saw their pain, their guilt, the impossible weight of making choices for me, without me. I was right there, but I couldn't tell them. I was a silent witness to their suffering, completely helpless. Even after I recovered, the what-ifs haunted them. And me. That crisis passed, but the echoes of their struggle lingered, a quiet hum beneath the surface of our family life. I'd see Daniel sometimes, a faraway look in his eyes, and I knew he was replaying those decisions, wondering if they'd done right by me. Sarah, too, would occasionally bring up a choice they'd made, her voice still tinged with uncertainty, years later. It wasn't that they blamed me directly, but the burden of having to decide for me without my clear guidance had left a mark. A heavy sense of responsibility, a guilt that they carried, wondering if they'd truly honored my unspoken wishes. I realized then that my silence hadn't just been a delay, it had become an unintentional legacy, a weight I'd placed upon their loving hearts. It wasn't until I spoke to my dear friend Margaret that I truly understood what I'd deprived my family of. We were at our favorite little cafe, sipping tea, when I confided in her about my ordeal and my children's distress. Margaret listened patiently, then gently shared her own story. My mother, bless her heart, had everything written down, she said, a soft smile gracing her lips. We knew exactly what she wanted for comfort care, for her final days. When the time came, it was still incredibly sad, of course, but there was a profound peace. We weren't guessing, we were honoring her. It felt like her final act of love, guiding us through the hardest time. Hearing Margaret speak, I felt a pang of regret, so deep it took my breath away. Her experience was a beacon, highlighting the dark, uncertain path my children had been forced to walk, simply because I hadn't taken the time to light it for them. Don't let your silence become their heaviest burden. I ask you, truly, do you want your loved ones to carry that kind of weight, to agonize over decisions, to second-guess themselves for years, all because you put off a conversation? This isn't just about documents, it's about protecting their peace of mind. It's about giving them the clarity, the confidence, and the comfort of knowing they are fulfilling your true wishes, not just guessing in the dark. Having these conversations now, while you are well and strong, is perhaps the most profound act of love and protection you can offer your family. It's a gift, a final embrace, that ensures their grief is untainted by guilt or doubt. Please, don't wait. I was there, but my voice was completely silent. It's a chilling thought, even now. During that terrible time, lying in that hospital bed, dimly aware of the hushed conversations around me, the most painful realization wasn't the discomfort, but the utter helplessness. I heard Dr. Aris explaining things to Daniel and Sarah, medical terms I couldn't quite grasp, options I couldn't choose. I could see their faces, blurred by my weakness, but I couldn't speak. I couldn't tell them what I wanted, what I truly believed was best for Tommy. It felt as though my very identity was dissolving, as if the choices for my body, for my future, were being made by strangers or by my loving children who were simply guessing. I was an object of care, not a person with desires. It was a profound, almost violating, loss of control. They loved me fiercely, but without my words, how could they truly know my heart? My children, bless them, were acting with the best intentions. They truly were. But what they thought was best, what they imagined I might want, wasn't necessarily what I would have chosen. It's a subtle but profound difference. When you're well, you have a vision for your life, for how you want things to unfold, even in difficult times. But when you can't speak that vision, others step in, guided by their own fears, their own hopes, their own interpretations of who you are. And sometimes, their best intentions can lead to outcomes that, while loving, don't truly honor your personal dignity or your deepest desires. That thought still brings a quiet ache to my heart. I remember Margaret telling me about her living will years ago. I thought she was being morbid. We were having tea, laughing about something silly, and she casually mentioned she'd updated her advance directive. "Just in case, Ilara," she'd said with a smile. I want my kids to know exactly what I want so they don't have to guess. I remember chuckling, telling her she was far too young for such morbid talk, that we had plenty of time for that. She just smiled, serene as ever. Now, looking back, I see the stark contrast. Margaret had granted her children the gift of certainty, a calm preparedness that I had so flippantly dismissed. Her foresight had given her family peace. My procrastination had given mine panic. Your story, your choices. Don't let them be written by someone else. Losing personal control is a hard truth to face, but it's one you can absolutely prevent. This isn't about being morbid. It's about preserving your dignity. It's about ensuring that your voice, your preferences, your deeply personal choices for your own body and your future are heard and honored, no matter what. Taking the time to create an advance directive, to discuss your wishes clearly, is perhaps the most powerful act of self-respect you can make. It tells the world, and your loved ones, that you are still in charge of your own story. My doctor, a kind man, was forced to navigate a minefield of unknowns. I remember it vividly, even though I was barely conscious. I was lying in a hospital bed, the sounds around me muffled, but I could still hear snippets. My children, Daniel and Sarah, sat across from Dr. Aris in a sterile conference room. He spoke in calm, measured tones, explaining things like ventilator dependence and prognosis and invasive procedures. I saw their faces, pale and drawn, trying to absorb complex medical terms they'd never heard before. What would she want? Daniel's voice cracked, full of anguish. Sarah, teary-eyed, echoed him. We just don't know if this is what she'd choose. Dr. Aris, bless his heart, looked at them with profound sympathy, but his hands were tied. He couldn't tell them what was right for Tan's me. He could only present options, and they were left guessing, agonizing over every choice, simply because I hadn't spoken my mind when I had the chance. I woke up from my crisis only to find myself in a situation I might have never chosen. After the immediate danger passed, there were still so many decisions, and without my clear instructions, my children and the doctors gravitated towards what felt safest, what felt like doing everything possible. But sometimes, doing everything possible isn't what you truly want. I remember a particular treatment, a series of painful physical therapies that, while perhaps beneficial, felt overly aggressive, almost like fighting against my own body's natural slowing. Had I been able to speak, to share my values about quality over quantity of life, I might have opted for a gentler path. It wasn't that the doctors were wrong or my children weren't loving. It was simply that my voice was absent. This is why a living will or an advance directive isn't just paperwork. It's your shield, protecting you from treatments you might not desire, ensuring your journey honors your personal dignity, not just medical possibility. Margaret told me how her mother's last days were filled with true peace, because they knew her every wish. After my recovery, Margaret visited me in the hospital, a soft smile on her face, a quiet strength about her. We talked about everything, and eventually, she shared her own experience with her mother, who had passed away a few years prior. My mother had everything written down, Ilara, she said gently, holding my hand. She wanted comfort care, nothing extreme. We knew exactly what she wanted, and it brought us such peace knowing we were honoring her wishes. Margaret described how her family had focused on making her mother comfortable, surrounded by love, rather than grappling with difficult medical decisions. There were no arguments, no second-guessing, just a shared understanding and a profound sense of doing right by their beloved matriarch. Listening to her, I felt a pang of deep regret. I wished I had given Daniel and Sarah that same peace. This isn't just about medical care. It's about your final act of self-respect. What do you truly value in life? And what do you value in how your life should end? These are deeply personal questions, and only you hold the answers. Don't leave them to chance, or worse, to the stressful guesses of your loved ones. Take the time to research advance directives and appoint a medical power of attorney. This is how you ensure your medical wishes are clear, how you prevent unnecessary suffering, and how you honor your legacy. It's a profound gift of peace, not just to your family, but to yourself. A determined but gentle smile, moving to the next hard truth. I thought my health was the only crisis. But the financial fallout was a second, silent storm. While I was still recovering, my children, Daniel and Sarah, were plunged into a sea of paperwork. I remember glimpses of them hunched over our kitchen table, buried under stacks of medical bills, insurance claims, and legal documents I'd never seen before. Their faces were etched with frustration, their voices tight as they spoke endlessly on the phone, trying to make sense of a system I had neglected to prepare them for. I felt a profound guilt, watching them navigate this administrative chaos, knowing it was a burden I had unintentionally placed upon them. Every call, every form, every moment of stress was a direct consequence of my inaction. Once I was able to talk, I began to understand the true extent of the problem. Without a power of attorney, even paying a simple bill became a legal nightmare. My children, despite being my closest family, had no legal authority to access my bank accounts, manage my investments, or even speak to my creditors on my behalf. Every task, no matter how small, required a formal legal process. We faced probate courts, lengthy delays, and significant legal fees. Money that could have been used for my recovery, or simply saved, was instead spent untangling a web I had unknowingly woven. It was a constant uphill battle against bureaucracy, all because I believed later would eventually come for such mundane yet critical matters. The peace of mind they eventually found came at a steep, avoidable price. I recall Daniel and Sarah finally meeting with a lawyer, a kind but stern woman, who explained the procedures they had to go through to gain legal authority. They looked so relieved, a heavy weight visibly lifting from their shoulders. But then I saw the invoices, the hours of legal work, the court fees, this hard-won clarity, this ability to finally act on my behalf, cost them dearly. Money that could have been part of my legacy or spent on their own families was instead consumed by the consequences of my indecision. The true cost wasn't just financial. It was the emotional exhaustion, the lost time, and the quiet strain it placed on our relationships. Today, I keep a neatly organized folder labeled Important Documents right on my desk. It contains my completed will, my medical power of attorney, my financial power of attorney, and a clear list of all my accounts and contacts. This isn't just about paperwork. It's about protecting those you love. Don't let your financial legacy be a puzzle for your loved ones to solve. Take the time now to create a will, assign those powers of attorney, and organize your financial information. It's an act of profound love, a final act of responsible stewardship, a gift that truly brings peace to everyone involved. Even after I recovered, I couldn't shake the feeling that something precious had been lost forever. The physical wounds healed, the legal tangles eventually sorted themselves out, and the financial strain eased, but a deeper regret settled in my heart. It wasn't just about the chaos and confusion. It was about the unrecoverable opportunity. The chance to have those conversations, calmly and with love, when I was well, when there wasn't a doctor standing over us or bills piling up. That chance was gone. We ended up having conversation, of course, after the crisis passed. But it was tainted by the memory of panic, by the shadow of what almost happened. It wasn't the same. It lacked the peace, the thoughtfulness, the deep connection that comes from discussing your wishes not as a chore but as an act of love. I picture us on that sunny afternoon, a perfect chance to talk slipping away. I remember a family picnic a few years before my health scare. Daniel was grilling, Sarah was laughing with her children, and I was sitting under an old oak tree, just watching them. The air was warm, filled with the smell of barbecue and the sound of happy chatter. In that quiet moment, between bites of watermelon, I could have said, we should really talk about what I want if something ever happens. I could have shared my hopes, my fears, my preferences. Not in a rush, but with the gentle certainty of a peaceful afternoon. Instead, I just smiled, content in the illusion that we had endless tomorrows. How different it would have been, a conversation born of love and foresight, instead of frantic desperation. That peaceful moment, that open heart, that was the true loss. That silence, It left a mark, a quiet "what if" in our hearts. Even though my children did their very best, and I recovered, there was a subtle but lasting rift, a quiet regret that lingered between us. They carried the burden of having guessed, and I carried the sorrow of not having spared them that pain. It made me realize these aren't just logistical discussions about medical forms or finances. They are profoundly about connection, about a final act of communication that assures your loved ones you trust them, and that you've given them the clearest possible path. When you leave those words unsaid, you're not just leaving a void, you're leaving a weight. A weight of uncertainty, of second-guessing, of wondering if they truly honored your wishes, or just what they thought was best. And that weight, for both sides, is far heavier than any words ever spoken. Don't lose your chance to give your family the most precious gift of all, your peace of mind and theirs. This is the hardest truth of all for me. The deepest regret isn't the confusion or the bills. It's the lost opportunity for a loving, calm conversation. The chance to guide your family, to ease their burden, to ensure your voice is heard, even when you cannot speak. You are here, watching this, and you have that chance right now. Don't make my mistake. Don't let the illusion of time steal this precious moment from you. Give them the timeless gift of your wishes. It's an act of love that will echo through their lives long after you're gone. Looking back, my regrets are not just mine, but lessons for us all. While I can't change my past, you have the power to change your future. My hope in sharing these truths is not to dwell, but to light a clear path for you, allowing you to choose a different, more peaceful journey. And it's never too late to begin. You still have the power to create peace for your future and your families. Start small. Talk to a loved one, ask your doctor, or research an advanced directive. That first step, however gentle, is the most important one you can take. If these insights resonated with you, please comment below. What's one thing you'll do this week to start this important conversation? Your shared wisdom helps us all learn and grow together. And if you found this video helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support truly helps us share these crucial lessons with more people, ensuring fewer families face these unspoken burdens. Thank you for watching.